Okay, well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this community presentation of the proposed China Delight retail development. My name is Andy Whiting. I'm the project lead and architect for this new development, and I'll be presenting this evening. I'm also joined by Lisa Wong. I'm sure those attending probably know her. She's the owner of the wonderful existing China Delight restaurant, serving up the best Chinese food in the Bay Area. Please excuse my bias. And she is the applicant for this new project. And I see on the call too, we also have David Jacks. He's in charge of Lisa and Sam's property management. And we have David on hand to help answer any operational or site use questions that anyone might have. So yeah, we are all super stoked about this new future for China Delight restaurant. We've already received some really lovely notes from nearby residents about the design and showing general support for Lisa's new venture. And we look forward to showing you all what we're planning to do on the site. And we hope to make you all as excited about this as we are. We're all available this evening to answer any questions or concerns or address any comments that anyone might have regarding the project. So we're going to start with a brief introduction from Mr. Jeff Schwilk, who is representing the City of Santa Clara Planning Department. And he'll be giving a brief introduction on how the city conducts its project review process. Then I'll present the slides, walking everyone through our thinking behind the design, some of our goals and objectives for the project, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&A at the end and make sure everyone has our contact details for any further follow-up after this presentation has ended. So with that, Jeff, if you'd like to give your introduction representing the city's Santa Clara Planning Department.
Sure, yeah. So Jeff Schwilk, City of Santa Clara. So I'll be facilitating this project for the city as the project planner. The city encourages applicants to hold early outreach with the community on their new development applications to take feedback and comments from the public before the project advances to a city hearing. And that is the purpose of tonight's meeting, is to have the developer guide you through their design and to take your feedback. And we as city staff will also be recording feedback and comments for the purposes of preparing this project for a public meeting review. This project is on process to be heard at an upcoming development review hearing at some point in the future for architectural review. So when we schedule the meeting, we will send out notice to all property owners within 500 feet of the subject properties at 4565 Stevens Creek and 40 Woodhams Road. And we will also include all those who provide their email addresses and who we can communicate to who have logged in as participants in this evening's meeting. So with that, I will turn it back over to Mr. Whiting.
Thank you, Jeff. Just like a question, it looks as though on Zoom everyone has an opportunity to raise a hand to ask a question, or there's a chat option too. I'm fine with that as we go along. Questions, you might be able to respond to them from your end, Jeff, too. But I apologize if I'm focused on the slides and I miss a question. I'll make sure that I review them at the end of the presentation and come back just to check if there's anything missed. But feel free, if you do have a question during it, just to write it down or put your hand up on request, and I'll see if I can answer them as we go too. Okay. All right. So this first slide shows the site location. We're at the northwest corner of the Stevens Creek and Woodhams Road intersection. Most people will probably be familiar with the site, as it was the home of the much-loved By the Bucket seafood restaurant that operated on that site for, I think, almost 60 years before finally closing its doors in 2017. So a brief history here to put things in some sort of context. Lisa and Sam Wong opened their first China Delight restaurant on Homestead Road in Cupertino, across from Central Park and Library in the mid-90s. Lisa, I think it was in 1995, I think, that you opened that restaurant?
1996.
96, okay. And they successfully ran their restaurant on that site for the next some 20 years. Unfortunately, whilst owning the business, they didn't own the land. So when the owner of the land wanted to reclaim the site for another use, Lisa and Sam were unfortunately put in the position of having to find another location for their restaurant. And they identified this site and they bought it and were in the process of remodeling. But as you probably all know, before that, they were able to open By the Bucket, burned down in July of 2018. It was an awful day for everyone, and fortunately, at least nobody was hurt as a result of the fire. And to keep China Delight going, Lisa and Sam relocated their restaurant here. You can see up in the top right-hand corner, next to Prune Ridge Golf Course. This is their current operating location. And so far, even through the nightmare COVID year, allowing for takeout food only, they've maintained a successful operation of their restaurant here. And that brings us to the current day, and they're looking now to build a new permanent China Delight restaurant on this Stevens Creek site that we're looking at. It's been a bumpy ride for Lisa and Sam, but this site here is now where we're looking to establish the home for the restaurant. So taking a closer look at this site, as we're all aware, Stevens Creek is predominantly an automobile-themed thoroughfare, and it's no exception around this site. We have the huge car dealerships across the street, the Honda, Volvo, Volkswagen, Mercedes to the south. We have an enterprise car dealership across Woodhams Road to the east. Smaller commercial language school and auto tire shops to the west. And then we have the single family residences along McKinley Drive to the north. So to put this in context, this blue square here, this was the original footprint of the By the Bucket restaurant. It was about 6,000 square feet, the same area roughly as we're proposing for the new restaurant. And as part of this proposed development, we'll also be demoing a little under 3,000 square feet of associated office building at the rear of the site. And to do this, we're filing a lot line adjustment with the city to consolidate the two lots. The smaller lot there is about 1/4 of an acre, and the larger site about 3/4 of an acre, which gives us almost exactly an acre of land to work with. And then this is our proposed site plan. It may be a little hard to see just on the screen, so I'm going to break it down a little to show you what we have on the site. And by the way, all the new buildings on the site, it's single story. That helps keep the massing and the profile low along Woodhams and Stevens Creek. So this area here in blue, that's the new China Delight restaurant. It's 5,310 square feet of interior space. And then we have an exterior seating area on the corner of 630 square feet, giving us about 6,000 square feet total for this new restaurant. I'll come back in a later slide and zoom in on this just to show you what's going on with the restaurant itself. And then alongside the restaurant, and to make this a successful financial venture for Lisa and Sam, we're looking to add 4 additional retail units. They're each about 1,000 square feet each, 23 feet wide by 44 feet long. which is perfectly sized for some supporting businesses like, I don't know, a boba tea shop, maybe some smaller cafe-type restaurants or stores, probably of an automotive in the theme of Stevens Creek. We experimented with many locations on the site to place the restaurant and retail units, but we all felt that rather than setting the units further back in the site with parking in front, which is typical of many retail strips, having it instead located out at the sidewalks gives far better continuity and a lively presence on the street, and also allows us to advertise the presence of the restaurant and stores more clearly. And then around the parking lot, we have stormwater management measures on site with bioswales and pervious interlocking pavers at the parking stores that run along the north and the west property lines. And then we interspersed, wherever possible, smaller landscape areas with tree planting to provide shading for the parked cars. We have bioswales engineered into the site to treat all stormwater on the site before entering the city system. And then at the request of the city, we provided separated sidewalks with a landscaping strip along both Stevens Creek and Woodhams Road as a buffer to the street vehicles. And then just as a point of interest, the separated sidewalk along Stevens Creek has actually provided us with a significant design challenge, because if anyone knows this site, the grades here with this berm are pretty abrupt. At the moment, without that landscaping, we have an existing VTA bus stop, which we were exploring with VTA the possibility of maybe moving it along to the next intersection. VTA did a review of this and an analysis. They prefer to leave it where it is. We're fine with that. It's nice having a bus stop on the corner, but we are going to have to take another look at the way that this landscaping works on this corner, just to make sure that we have ADA access compliance for that bus stop, to be able to make sure grades are not too great for its access to the sidewalk. And then along the north property line, where we are adjacent to the single family residences, we're proposing an 8-foot high masonry wall, along with a line of taller shrubs implanted from that for privacy. You know, it's a consideration as cars come in here, they park in their stalls facing north along this line, and we don't want the headlights of those cars to be shining into those residential properties. And then this slide shows the traffic circulation on the site. So we have a total of 57 parking stalls that meets the city requirement. The calculation of the stores required comes from one store being required for every 200 square feet of this retail space, and then one store for every 3 seats that we have in the restaurant. You can see graphically here in the restaurant the seating that matches the 57 stores that we're providing. And then vehicular access to the site is provided with a two-way driveway off both Stevens Creek and Woodhams Road. And then once on the site, we have a single-way circulation of parking stalls. We use a combination of 60-degree and right-angle configurations for the stores, adhering to the city dimensioning standards. And then all parts of the building are within the fire department ranges for access from hydrants in the street. So we're not intending any of the fire trucks to actually come onto the site, but they'll provide any firefighting from the streets themselves, which the fire department, as part of our review process, has signed off on. And then this next slide shows the interior spaces of the restaurant and the retail units. You can see that in the restaurant, starting at the bottom corner on Stevens Creek, has this outdoor seating area. And this is where the main entry to the restaurant is. Then we have a large interior dining area, which is partitionable for private parties. And then next to that, we have the entry with a reception and waiting area for restaurant entry from the car park. And then at the back of the house, we have the kitchen area, storage areas, delivery areas, and then right at the back, it's for utilities. This is coming close to where the Woodhams Road driveway is, and so it's kind of back of house for the utilities, and then a trash pickup area. Well, this is the dumpster area. It gets tricky in this area because of the grades again. We have the way we're planning this is that we take the trash receptacles from here, and we don't have its own separate curb cut at the request of Public Works on Woodhams, but instead staff takes those receptacles onto the Woodhams Road driveway, and then they're taken to and then down the driveway onto the street. That way, it's a very smooth grade without any fear of the heavy receptacles kind of running and rolling away. So here we have a 3D rendering of what the building looks like from the intersection. It's the most dynamic corner of the building, with an architectural expression of the columns and the beams being most prominent here. You can see the exterior patio area that leads to the main restaurant entry point of Stevens Creek. Here. The ability to have a space outdoors for eating has become very important, as we've all experienced during these COVID times, and the city has asked us for its inclusion. And you can also see that we've included some more tables and chairs along Woodhams Road on the sidewalk there, because we have additional width of that sidewalk because of the setback. So that's a good location to have them too. And then a different view of the same area where you can see the entry. And you can see we're trying to maximize the amount of storefront glazing that wraps around the south and east elevations in order to give the interior of the restaurant a fresh, vibrant, and naturally lit interior. We have various sun shading devices. We've incorporated those to mitigate any direct high sunlight coming from the south. And the dark bronze storefront here sits on a concrete base that will give a contemporary snap tie look to. It's an elegant, architecturally pleasing entry area with these planter boxes containing drought-tolerant plants, low maintenance, that define the border of this space. The structural frame is at its most pronounced here and gives a lot of character to the restaurant. These architecturally expressed columns and beams are clad in a composite siding product called Prodema, which has a beautiful wood simulated finish. It's sustainable, durable, it's easy to maintain, and it will retain its high quality appearance for many years. And then the expression of these Prodema modular column and beam bays continue along the Woodhams roadside. You can see that as the function behind the bays shift from here on the left, the dining space behind, to on the right where we have kitchen spaces and restrooms, then the storefront is replaced with a softer living green screen. And then the contemporary metal planter boxes that front these bays carry a continuity of design that we saw from the front on the Stevens Creek side and soften the expression of these bays. The doors here on the Woodhams Road side, they're not a formal entrance to the restaurant, but they do allow the wait staff to access these exterior tables along Woodhams Road. We're about 27.5 feet to the topmost part of the facade here, all the way around the building, which seems quite high for a single story, but along with it giving the interior of the restaurant a lofty and inviting dining space, it also allows us to drop the roof level behind it. So then we can hide all of the rooftop HVAC fans, condenser units, and we hide it behind that extra height rather than just having the lower height and then and then screening it with panels. So it's integral with the architectural design. And then additionally, you can see here too that we've added some nice architectural looking light fixtures on these columns to provide some illumination and safety along the sidewalk. And then this is a view from the car park side. This is pretty much standard choreography, you know, that we're all familiar with, of just pulling your car up in the car park and then going into one of these 4 retail stores or the China Delight restaurant from this side. You can see that the Prodema columns and beam theme continues into the car park too. It forms a pedestrian arcade in front of the 4 retail units for rain protection. And then you can see the China Delight restaurant entrance here too. And to the left at the kitchen, we have inset into these bays a smooth finish plaster broken up with the plaster reveals to give it some articulation. More storefront on the far left above the double doors to the kitchen, which helps to maintain a naturally lighted kitchen environment too for the workers there, and a nice kitchen. And then the final 2 slides here show square-on elevations. These two from the 2 street views, Stevens Creek along the bottom and Woodhams Road on the top. You can see, you know, that I was saying how the Prodema columns and beam theme continues and forms a kind of unifying rhythm as the building progresses down the street. And the interchangeability of the softer living green walls plays off against the storefront entries of the retail stores and the storefront entry of the restaurant. And then on the car park side, these 2 elevations, still using that same modular design intent, but using a stucco once we get to the utility and the trash areas. You can see the trash area here on the left. So not requiring the more expensive materials at the trash area. We just have a smooth finish, plaster finish in those areas. So that's it for the presentation. I'm happy to address any questions. I see that I've got some hands coming up. Jeff, have you anything to add to that, or would you like to go to the questions?
No, I think that sounds good. You touched on the trash enclosure being incorporated into the building at the back. And I think I saw on the plans that's about 115 feet away from the residential property line. Is that correct?
Yeah, the site plan called out a dimension on it. Let's see, we can go back to the site plan here. I don't know if you can see my cursor, but there's the trash receptacle at the back of the restaurant. And yes, it is that distance to the residential single families further along Woodhams.
I think you have a dimension provided just beyond the top corner of the building at the rear there, to the left. Yeah, right. It's right at the northwest corner of the restaurant at the rear. There's a dimension that I think right there. I think it states
115 foot 4 inches. Yeah, 115 feet. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that should answer to one of the questions that you received from one of the neighbors, Mr. Madhavan.
Oh, yes. Let me see that one. I'm a neighbor behind the property sharing the fence. Can you please provide more detail about bioswale? Will there be a fence built to separate the residentials in the back and also where the dumpster is located? Okay, so I think we covered the dumpster here at the back, and yes, we have an access out onto the driveway for those receptacles. And then the bioswale, the bioswales here in the one corner of the site. We're using landscape area wherever we can, just as a filtration for any of the rainwater. We grade the site to allow the reception of the water to go through these swales before they actually go into the storm system, and So it's clean the water. I think that's a city of Santa Clara standard policy in order to do that. So our civil engineer, he's not on the call, but he's available to follow up any specific questions. If you want to email either Jeff or myself, we can give you a more detailed response about those areas that it's covering. But it's sufficient enough for the public works standards in order to do that intent. And then question 2, will there be overnight security planned? We have trespassing in the past in the property multiple times. David, I don't know whether you like to come in on this, or Lisa. It sounds like a good idea to me. Security is always a good idea, having cameras on the site, extra security wherever possible. I'm sure the owners of those retail units would like it as well. But we did have police comments as well come through as part of the review process, putting an emphasis on that too. So we're at an early stage here with the planning, but once we start to get into the design development and the construction, that is certainly something that we will be looking at and implementing on the site.
Also, a lot of the concerns that David had now have to do with the homeless activity that's been happening as of late, meaning once By the Bucket closed its doors. Certainly, while it's a functioning restaurant and there's people on the property, employees, customers, there tends to be a lot less to no presence of issues with homelessness. So it'll be something that's on everyone's mind until until we open doors. Then we'll see what's really needed as far as security goes.
Right, that makes sense.
But for all other strip malls and properties that we manage, adequate camera seem to with proper signage so that everybody knows that there are cameras tends to work quite well.
Yes, we'll look into that. I would think as well, having a street presence, it's a busy street, having those units out on the front as well, rather than tucked back in the corner, will help. But it's going to be in the interest of everybody to provide whatever security measures are possible for the retail unit and the restaurant. And then the last part of the question was regarding the fence at the back. The intention is, and how high that fence will be. It's going to be an 8-foot high masonry fence. The planting that's inset from it on our side of the fence as well. We have a line of shrubs there that are likely to grow up beyond that 8-foot high fence too, and just provide a softening element for it too. But that should, we feel, provide enough a separation there between those residential units and the commercial. I got one. What will the distance of the wall be from the fence? What will the distance of the wall be from the fence? Can the north wall be taller than 8 feet? The wall and the fence, I'm not quite getting that one. The wall and the fence is the same thing to me. I think it could be either a fence or a masonry wall. We're proposing it be a wall, just to make it a little more durable and more solid. It could, I think it could go higher than 8 feet. 8 feet is probably a city standard.
Right. For commercial developments along Stevens Creek, we require a minimum, but we typically call for at least 8 feet whenever the parking lot of a retail development or an auto dealership adjoins residentially zoned properties. So 8 feet with some landscape shrub or tree planting to screen above that is the typical design that we look for.
Okay. let me see what else we have here. Can you please clarify what measures you're doing to prevent future fire? Even recently, a few weeks back, we had fire on a tree in the next property. Well, all of the buildings themselves will be sprinkled. We have a list of requirements as well from the fire department, for any time, the hydrants located. I think that we're having to add an additional hydrant for fire protection on the corner of the building. The lettering on the building has to be made clear for the fire department when they approach the building for their orientation on the site. And that once we get beyond this into the design development, we will be bringing on Aegis Fire Consulting as well, who will be, taking the lead for all fire concerns as well to make sure that it's protected. I can't really speak in terms of individual tree protection of fires. I imagine just, maintenance of those, of any kind of landscaped areas around the exterior of the site, and good practice of maintaining those would be incorporated as part of the site management.
Andy?
Yeah.
If I could speak.
Yeah.
So I heard about this fire the other night. Apparently there was, again, it was a homeless situation. And what the design we're currently looking at does about that situation, by putting the buildings in the front of the property, it's all open in the back. So it gets rid of the homeless situation that's currently in the back, because there's a building there that they're hiding behind, and there's tree, and all of that's going to be removed. It's going to be open space where anybody driving up either Woodhams or Stevens Creek can look directly down into the back of that area. It's just going to be parking stalls and then the fence to the homes. If they're going to be anywhere, it'll be closer to the building at the front corner. So it kind of draws the problem away from the residents by opening the whole back of that area up.
I see. Yeah. Good point. Here's a clarification on the fence. Thank you. The homes on the north side already have a wood fence. I see now. So what will the distance between that wood fence and the proposed cement wall? So I'm not sure how close to the property line that wood fence is. Our wall would sit directly on the property line with an L footing. It would make it as close as possible to that wood fence, and probably try to block the ends as well, just to make sure we don't have anything running in between. David, does that sound reasonable?
Yeah, if I recall correctly, there's both sets of fences there. The commercial space prior, by the bucket, had a wall for the commercial business, and then the residents on the backside put up their own fences. So there actually was two fences back there on the north side.
I see.
So I suspect the residents would have the option of taking their fence down or making it taller if they didn't want to see the wall. But the wall that we create would be driven by a city code.
Right.
Yeah, and then they would have the option of doing whatever they wanted with the additional fence that they have.
Yes. Yeah, it's kind of just we're right on the property line, and then the residences are right on the property line. So we kind of just treat our sides individually, I guess.
Usually through the design review process, the city looks for the wall to be painted and finished on both sides.
Yes.
So it has that finished look to it, so that the wood fences can be removed.
Yeah, I'm quite happy for this fence to be, anything that the residents would like. I think it started out as just a simple wood fence. And I saw in one of the planning notes that a masonry wall was more desirable. But yeah, either way, it would be finished on both sides in the interest of the residences and our side to make it look as good as possible. I mean, masonry, blocks is not the greatest look. We can certainly go over the top of that, or have it as a concrete wall. So yeah, let's look into that in terms of making that on both sides look as good as we can. And then I have a question here. What are the operating hours? Lisa and David, what are your operating hours right now?
Lisa, do you have a mic?
You mean the restaurant hour?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's like 11 o'clock till 9 o'clock.
11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Okay. I imagine, I don't know whether you've looked into what the operating hours for this one. It's so far down the road, but I mean, as a basic understanding, I guess that's a good place to start. Will they be? Yes.
I just wanted to add, it's most restaurants that have bars tend to stay open until 12. My understanding is this does not have a bar, so it'll probably be at 9 o'clock. There's no late night activity dining thing going on.
Right.
But yeah, it's not going to be like By the Bucket where it had a huge bar, and it's a different crowd, different scene.
Right. Will they be installing a new storm drain on the street? At the moment, the only storm drain in that whole area is on the corner of McKinley and Woodhams. During the By the Bucket fire, drainage was a big issue. I'm not aware that they are installing a new storm drain there. Tends to get quite expensive, I know, for the project to support it, but it's a good idea. Let me take note of this one. I will check that with our civil engineer, especially with the reference to the drainage being an issue there. It's a good point. And let me find out about that one. If there's a need for it, then yes, we'll need to add it and work with Public Works as well on adding that in. And then during the construction, how is the building going to be secured? Like dust or debris? Will there be some protective fences when the construction is going on? Yes, we don't have a general contractor on board yet, but that would be the standard operating procedures to control all dust and debris on the site, with a site fence, maintain access all the way around it, control the construction hours as well, so that the residences are not affected past business hours. And they would put together a construction management plan that would be given to the city at the time, way before we start construction. During the plan check, there would be a public record that anybody would be able to get from the city and take a look at. Okay, I think that's the end of the questions that I have. I'm not seeing any more unless you see any your end. Jeff, are you seeing any? Are you seeing these two?
No, I don't see any others.
Okay. We're doing on time. 6:47. So, I mean, unless you have anything further to add, Jeff, I think we can wrap it up with our details of any kind of follow-up questions. If anybody has any thoughts or more questions that occur to them after we've signed off here, both Jeff and myself are available for any kind of further dialogue or any concern on any of these issues that we've discussed. If anybody feels that they'd like any more elaboration on it, I can do those follow-up questions with our civil engineer on the drainage, the storm drain there. But feel free just to email either one of us with any more questions as they occur to you after we've signed off. I'll go to the slide here with our contact information. So we just to make a note of that information, and we're happy to continue the conversation.
Looks like we have a question about how you can provide a copy of the plans.
Yeah, so you probably have standards for this, Jeff. I mean, we have the plans on OneDrive. I'm happy, to give anybody the link to that, or even I think we have it as a PDF, which is emailable as well, right, Jeff? I think you had sent it out.
Right. Yeah, I can. Let's see. If you email me, I can send a copy of the latest plans that we've received, and then likewise, as we get ready for the city's public hearing, once the city calls the project complete and schedules a meeting date, by that point we will have the final set of plans that will be going to the public meeting for a decision. But I do have a progress set that I can email. And likewise, Mr. Whiting as well.
Yes.
Let's see. So do we have the email addresses of these participants?
I think I don't see it on Zoom, but if anybody who wants a copy of the plans on the PowerPoint presentation there, just send an email and we can to either myself or to Jeff, and we'll just reply to it and attach the plans as a PDF. I think that's probably the best way.
Great. It looks like we've received a few that have been asking questions.
Well, you just cut out there on me. Just 1 second there, Jeff. Could you repeat that?
Oh, we've received the emails from a few individuals who have been asking questions.
Oh, okay, great.
Thank you for that.
Okay, if there's unless you have anything further, Jeff.
I don't, but we've scheduled this meeting till 7:15. So sometimes people will join when they can in the last few minutes. So
good. Yeah.
So I can stay connected here, and it would be nice if you could as well, Andy.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have a timeline for when the city hearing may be? The city public hearing?
Well, not yet. We don't schedule the actual meeting date until after we've worked through the comments that city departments have had on the project and formulated the conditions of approval. So we're not quite at that point yet. And we hope that on the next submittal from the applicant that we'll be at a point where we can schedule this for architectural review at the development review hearing.
How full is your schedule?
How full is it?
Mm-hmm. Is there
well, I mean, we are busy, but we take projects and schedule them in the when they're ready to go, regardless of the length of the agendas for the meetings.
Another question's coming in here, asking whether we have an ETA on completing the building and opening. We're at very early stages here with planning. I'd estimate, maybe another couple of months until we get full entitlements for planning. After that, we would be putting together a construction document package for the building department review to get a building permit. The completion of those plans are likely, probably take about 6 months to put that plan set together. And then depending on how busy the city is with their plan review process for building permits, that could quite easily be another 6-month review process. It tends to go quickly at the beginning, but to get all departments to sign off at the end, if there's any issue that drags itself, typically with PG&E or something like that, it could be like a 6 to 8 month process for the city to close that. So I'm thinking, we got Lisa's side of it as well with financing of the project, which we're intending to be simultaneous with the review process. But I would estimate, maybe like 15 months from now, probably to break ground. And then, like I say, we don't have a GC on board yet, but my estimation of a project this size is probably about another 12 months, 15 months beyond that to actually build it and have it open. So, and anything can happen, within that time. So we're talking probably coming up on 2 years before we open the restaurant. I know, Lisa, you want this going as soon as you can, and we do too. But it's a construction process, getting it built, getting all the review done does take a while. But that's kind of our best assessment at the moment. And then another question here, many times we see homeless coming from the east and west side, building and road. It would help if you can please have that in consideration so the property is secured from all sides. I think we were alluding to this, and David, you were too. All good points. Yeah, we just need to make it's good to have like a community involvement of the understanding that security is required on this site, and we'll provide as much as we can to make this site and the surrounding residences secure as part of it, as part of our neighbors and community too. Another question here. Do you expect to come before the Planning Commission for any variants or similar special issues? That's a good question. We do typically file variances, or the variances are typically for fire, and then we have AMMCs, which are alternate means and methods of construction, which then go for the building department. That's if part of the building code cannot be met and we need to find another way of accommodating it in another area. For both of those, they Jeff, you can jump in here, but I think both of those tend to be more during the building permit phase. I'm not anticipating filing either one of those, a variance or an AMMC. I haven't seen anything in the notes, I think, that's going to require that. Is that your understanding, Jeff?
Right. Yeah. As of right now, the plans comply with the minimum zoning standards. And so for that reason, at this point, would not be scheduled to go before the Planning Commission for variances or any special consideration. The project review path would be just to the development review hearing unless appealed.
Okay, and then another one come in here. I just apologies for text-only questions. Oh, apologies not necessary. This is so strange for me to be doing a community presentation over Zoom. It seems like we're pulling out of this COVID. I'd be happy just to get back to face-to-face and being able to talk to people directly. But really appreciate you managing to work the technology to join us here this evening. Okay, here's another question. Can this Zoom video be shared after the meeting is complete? Yes, it should be recording. There was an option when I started it to record on my hard drive. So I think it's ticking away in the background. I can add that to the OneDrive. Jeff, you probably know, is it just the same as circulating the PDF drawings of the plans? Is it public record, this meeting?
It's public record. And we can circulate. If you would circulate that via OneDrive, that would be great. Yeah, great. Okay, that's good. I have the email here, so I will either I'll probably just send you a link. I got a feeling that all this video for an hour is probably quite a large file size, so I'll send a link to it. Another question here. Are there any changes to the overhead electricity wiring plans? We have high voltage wires around the property. We don't have an electrical consultant on board yet, but I don't. Our joint French dry utility consultant, I don't think there was any intention to have those go underground. It's a huge expense to have to put all of that wiring under the ground, but I'll look into it. I'll find out. It's always nicer and safer to have it put under the ground, but I'm not sure what they're planning. Will there, another question here, Jeff, this one is probably for you. Will there be an architectural review step with the city common? Yes, there will. Yeah, that is the only formal process step scheduled currently based on the project design is an architectural review at the development review hearing level. And for that meeting, to answer the second part of the question, yes, we will be distributing notice to, the city will be distributing notice to all property owners within 500 feet of the property. In addition to those tonight, we leave their email addresses and contact us. Looks like we had another question come up. How does the city enforce the property is maintained as planned after the construction? So when the project goes before the city's development review hearing for architectural review, the city, if the city acts to approve the plan at that time, that plan and any final changes, last minute changes become the approved plan set that the city maintains. And then the current property owner and developer, and years down the line, any future property owners of this development are then obligated to maintain the property according to the approved plan set by the city. Hope that answers the question. You're welcome.
不要了。
Another question just coming up here, asking how many parking spaces there are on the property. There's 57 parking spaces. The way we calculated it, it's the city requirement that we need one store for every 200 square feet of retail space, and one store for every 3 seats that we have in the restaurant. So it was kind of reverse engineering on it. I mean, it's really just trying to make the parking lot as efficient as we possibly can. And then that determined that we had the 57 stores. We kind of had those retail spaces with a depth along the street, which kind of defined themselves, and the driveway entrance next to it. So that amount of area was defined. And then, so with as many stores that we have left over, we divide by 3, and that determines how many seats we then can put into the restaurant.
Okay, thank you.
Good, how are you? I want to go with chicken. Do you have chicken and green beans?
Yeah.
Yeah, chicken green beans. And some combination fried rice. Try some of the small sesame rice.
大哥，咱们4kg鸡饭吗？你们在那边必须好。再等，OK。Okay, what do you like? Bread, eggplant, right?
Andy, I'm not sure if you've already done this or not, but if you could send me a copy of the link at maybe the same time you sent
Yeah, of
send it
course.
to the others.
I'll send that to you tomorrow. Yeah.
Great, that's fine. Okay, well, I have 7:15.
Me too. So I think that concludes the presentation. Thank you, everybody, for joining in with us this evening. We really appreciate all your comments and your help to make this the best project that we can do. So everybody have a really good evening, and thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.